Hey, let me ask you an honest question. How long have you been telling yourself, I'll start when things slow down? When work becomes less demanding, when the bills are under control, when the kids need less from you, when you finally have more time. Now, I know it sounds reasonable, but there's one problem. Life rarely slows down. One problem gets solved and another one takes its place. The car needs repairs, something happens at work, the cost of living goes up, a family member needs your help, and before you know it, another 6 months are gone. Then another year. That's how people end up putting their future on hold. Not because they're lazy, not because they do not want something better, but because they're waiting for that perfect time to begin. And that perfect time never shows up. Look, I understand that starting something new can feel uncomfortable, especially when you already have a full life. You may be working full time, you may have family responsibilities, you may feel tired before the day even begins. The idea of adding one more thing can feel overwhelming, but building something for your future does not mean turning your entire life upside down. It does not mean quitting your job tomorrow. It does not mean working all night, and it does not mean risking everything that you have built. It means taking a small amount of focused time and using it to learn a skill that could create more options. That's it. You do not need 10 free hours a day. You do not need thousands of followers. You do not need to understand every piece of technology. You need a clear plan. You need a system that you can follow. Okay. You need to stop waiting for somebody to give you permission to start because nobody is coming to your rescue. Your employer is not responsible for your freedom. The government is not going to build your backup plan and hoping everything works out. That is not a strategy. Okay. That may sound blunt, but sometimes the truth needs to be blunt. Look, most people spend their best years building somebody else's business. They show up early, they stay late, they miss family events, they postpone vacations. They sacrifice their time believing that someday it will all pay off. But someday is not a date on the calendar. And unless you make decisions someday, can quickly become never. That is why I believe learning how to build an online business matters. Not because it is a magical solution, not because it happens overnight, but because it gives an ordinary person the opportunity to learn valuable skills and build around their life instead of consistently fitting life around work. Look, you can learn how to create content. You can learn how to build an audience. You can learn how automation works to market a product without chasing friends, family, or strangers. You learn one step, then you take the next step. That is how momentum begins. You may not feel ready, start anyways. You may not feel confident. Let me tell you, confidence comes from doing the work. You may be afraid of making mistakes. You probably will make a few. We all do. But a mistake can be corrected. Another year of waiting cannot be recovered. So here's the question I want you to think about. What will your life look like 1 year from now if nothing changes? Same schedule, same worries, same feeling that you should have done something sooner? Imagine something different. Imagine being 1 year older, but also 1 year more experienced, 1 year more confident, 1 year closer to building something that belongs to you. That future starts with one decision, not next month, not when life settles down, today. Click the link in my profile, get your free copy of our 10K and 30-day blueprint. Read it, study the process, see what is possible when you stop waiting and start learning. You do not need to have everything figured out, guys. You simply need to take the first step. So go ahead, click the link in my profile, get your free blueprint today. Because the longer you wait for the right time, the more time you give away. And remember, if you're tired of always being on, it's time to build something that works when you don't.